The manhwa starts off with showing an old and creepy wall, along with wooden furniture that is worn down. There are bugs that occasionally fly in from outside through the vents. As it's flying through the air, a boy says he envies them. He smacks the bug between his hands, and looks at the remains of the bug on his palm. Then licks it up, but stops, saying that it's really bitter. He says he's spent his entire life here. He cleans the bug off his hand, saying he's always been trapped here. His light flickers, and the boy, it doesn't say his name even in the later chapters. So boy will be his name for now. He's writing a self-introduction for when he finally gets out of the basement. Boy says normally one would start with their name. But he doesn't know his name, as he's never been called it. He looks to the side, at a picture saying he should have one. As it's a picture of him, his mother and his father. He was separated from his mother shortly after birth. He can tell from the picture of her, and how brightly she was smiling, that she must have loved him a lot. His father interrupts his thought, saying that she's gone, his mother is dead. Boy turns around asking what he means. He tells him that she died shortly after birth, by jumping off a bridge. He starts to laugh, angering the boy. He says even though this man is his father, he is also the bastard who locked him here. Just to ensure he can't escape, there are multiple doors, all with their own locks. Every key is on his dad's hip. The father says he'll never send him outside, and asks if he hasn't told him before why his mother jumped off the bridge. Boy looks scared. The father grabs a cookie, and shoves it towards Boy's face, saying that his mother was afraid of the world she lived in. He says to imagine the cookie is the world, then he breaks it, saying that she knew an apocalypse was coming. The boy is still on edge. The father tells him the reason he isn't sending him outside is because he loves him, and he can't watch his own son commit unalivement. Boy shakes in anger, saying that he is lying. Saying that sounds like a ridiculous excuse, and he shouldn't talk about his mother like that, asking if he thinks he'd believe him when he's had him trapped here. He says it's up to him or not if he wants to believe him. He grabs onto Boy's notebook, saying his self-introduction will never see the light of day. He goes to burn it, and Boy tries to stop him, but the father ignores him. Now all that is left is ashes. Boy starts to ask how someone like him is his father. He says that Boy shouldn't have said something like that. He is doing this all for him, and to follow him as it's that time of day. They begin to walk down the hallway, and Boy says this happens at the same time every single day. Even from the vents that lead to the outside, he cannot hear anything besides the sound of he and his father, and they are alone in this giant basement. The father begins to write on the chalkboard, and Boy says that it's always the same routine. He gets lectured by his father, and then follows with training. There's only one thing allows him to overcome this mundane life. He smiles at a book, saying that he's able to read books from the library to entertain himself. There are many to choose from, but he likes the ones that describe the outside world. He can only imagine what it looks like on the outside. He wonders what the feeling of sunlight is like, and says it must be quite warm. He wants to feel what it's like to run through grass and trees. He wants to see what other people look like, and maybe befriend them. But most of all, he needs to find his mother. He gets kicked in the face by his father, who grabs the book, saying he's surely told him which books he is allowed to read. And this is a book about the surface. The father laughs, saying that is pathetic, that the boy has such a strong attachment to the outside. And he's told him before that he can never go outside. Since when the apocalypse comes, the world will be filled with screaming and blood, only ashes will remain. The only place for him to survive is here in the basement. Boy says he's tired of this damn lie. It's always about how the apocalypse is coming. Because of that he's been locked here, constantly being abused physically. He says he will escape this prison no matter what it takes. But that right now is not the time to do it. He needs to wait for the perfect chance. The moment his guard is down, he will try to get the keys and dip. Inside of the training area of the bunker, we see Boy sweating, as he is doing some push-ups. The father says if he's tired from just that he won't be able to survive, as he has only gotten to 10 so far, but we see he has hella weight stacked on his back. His arms give out, and he collapses under the weight. He is gassed out, and his father approaches him. He stretches his hand out toward him. But Boy is confused. He sees his father seems caring and asks him why he is helping him. The father grabs his arm and yanks him up, saying he never said he was helping him, while kicking his feet out from under him, causing him to roll towards a mirror, crashing into it back first. The father says if someone reaches out to him he should never trust them. Always be wary of humans, especially during the apocalypse. Which is what he's been training him for, and the combat techniques will be essential, as he needs to be able to survive with just his bare hands. But he realizes that Boy isn't listening to him, as he has been unresponsive. He says that he's weak to have collapsed from that. He turns to leave, saying they can end it here for today. As he leaves, Boy's eyes fill with opportunity. He says this carelessness is what he was waiting for. He jolts up, grabbing a piece of glass. His father still hasn't noticed. Boy begins to run at him, then puts his feet together. exploding forward saying he can kill him and escape. As he gets closer and closer to his father's back, Boy smiles saying that it worked. Father stops moving, as Boy gets closer. Boy has made a mistake in his plan. The father looks down at the floor to see a shadow behind him, and it's revealed that he never dropped his guard to begin with. With the shard getting ever so closer, his face distorts as he turns and smiles toward it. Boy is surprised to see the creature-like movements coming from his father, but continues with his plan and attempts to stab him. The father avoids the attack, much to Boy's surprise. The father starts to pivot, and twists his body along with it as he goes for a roundhouse kick. Boy realizes he's screwed, and all we hear is the sound of the kick as he falls unconscious. A bit later the sound of dripping water wakes him up. He sits up to see the water from the sink dripping into a bucket, as his father says he's finally awake. He says that it was a good attempt, at least the attack was. But that he told him before, that if it's not with his bare hands, then this training is all for naught. He starts to grin, saying that the penalty for using a weapon is he will train twice as much. Father locks the cell door, and leaves telling Boy to get some rest. As tomorrow will be a rough day, he laughs while the lights dim. He walks down the hallway, and Boy says he knows something that his father doesn't. When he turns the lights off, all of the electricity in the room turns off for a moment, and all of the noise fades out. And if he focuses on listening for that moment, he can hear things that were too dulled out before. Even though they are far away, he could hear things faintly. The sounds of wheels being turned, the sounds of birds chirping, along with the sound of a city full of people. From this he found two things. While his father says it's bedtime, it's actually daytime above ground, and the other truth is that the earth is peaceful. His father keeps saying the end is coming, but it's an excuse to keep him locked up. So he plans to break out of here, and then he will find his mother, anytime he asks about her. He's only told that she is dead. But now that he knows he only tells lies, he thinks he understands now that it means she is actually alive. He pulls his blanket up saying he is going to make sure to find her. It shows father walking down the hallway while laughing, and then his phone rings. He stops moving, and takes it out to see it's from someone called River. His facial expression shifts to a serious one, and he asks what it is, saying that he told them not to contact him unless it was an emergency. While Boy sleeps, the father listens to River speak for quite a few minutes. And when River finally stops talking, father says all right and to let the boy live. He instantly crumbles to the floor, sobbing from what he's been told. Sometime later Boy hears his father laughing, and he opens his eyes to see that he's in a completely different mood than usual, and seems ominous. Boy realizes it feels off, asking him what's going on. Then he feels that he cannot move, and looks down to see that he is tied up. He shouts asking what is going on, and to be untied. But father keeps laughing, not listening to what Boy is saying. He grits his teeth out of anger, and says he'll break himself free. He starts to flex and the ropes begin to slowly break. Boy gets distracted, and looks up to see father staring down at him. And in a blood-curdling tone, he tells him to stop it. Boy breaks out in cold sweats, saying that he thought training was meant to be twice as difficult, asking if he doesn't remember that. Father tells him that the plans have changed, as they won't be doing anything today, rather not just today but from every day from here forward. He will be forced to sit in this chair. Boy starts to panic asking what he's talking about, saying he told him he would train him to survive. Father says the training is over now. Boy wonders what's gotten into him so suddenly. He won't be able to see his mom if he can't break free. He starts to try harder to break out. Father asks him what he's doing. Boy starts to struggle as hard as he can, barely snapping some of the rope. Father sees this and is speechless, then starts to laugh uncontrollably, but it wasn't like his normal laugh. This one seemed demonic in nature. He throws out a punch that cracks like a whip. There is some delay that sends Boy and his chair into the air, causing him to fall over. Father walks over, and raises his chair back up, saying that he is sure he told him not to move. He laughs then turns back to normal, but Boy is determined to break out, and tries again. Father kicks him this time, and laughs while Boy is on the floor. This sequence is repeated multiple times, and Boy doesn't know what compelled him to keep fighting back that day. As it would have made more sense to just pretend to agree and look for another opportunity. But he didn't want to give up even if it cost his life. His resentment towards father as the one who locked him up and tormented him was increasing every minute. Boy feels his hand move, and looks down to see he is broken free from the ropes. He says he felt an excitement he's never felt before. He began to wonder what kind of face his father would make if he were to beat him. He smiles and turns to look at him, but instead is greeted with his father already having closed the distance. He thought that his father would be angry that he broke out, or maybe even worried. But instead he saw something that he did not expect, as his father was crying, and it seems like he's always been holding them back. Boy is shocked by this, as for the first time he can see that behind his father's mean persona, he is truly a saddened man. Boy wonders why he's looking at him like that. He doesn't even try to avoid the attack. After being hit, he begins to lose consciousness, and sees his father walks up to him, and in a shaky voice says he hopes he can understand. He begins to recall his father's words. He says to always keep in mind, and among all of the survival tips, the most important rule is to never leave the basement. There is no safer place than here. It has thousands of defense mechanisms, and will maintain itself for 126 years. And it has plenty of food. Trying to leave a place that has everything prepared is just asking for death. The end will find them without warning, so he mustn't leave the basement. He starts to wake up, and stands back up seeing that his father is nowhere in sight. He says it's never happened before, and the only time he disappeared was when he would lay down to sleep. He says that he was acting really strange yesterday too. He sits up against the wall, saying from the repetitive lifestyle to the current situation he couldn't understand. He knew that something big was about to happen to him. The gears stop turning, and he says his hunch was correct as the door opens. He sees every single door down the hallway has now been opened, with nobody in sight. This is a chance he couldn't pass by. He bursts out into a sprint so he can take the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He begins to run past the door, and through the hallway. He says by now father would have stopped him if he were here. But since he hasn't, it means he isn't. He keeps running until reaching the ladder at the end, and looks up saying he's found it. He begins to climb it, and hopes that it's bright outside. Right as he gets to the top, he removes the cover and we hear the sound of cars. He pops up out of the hole. His eyes are closed due to it being so bright, but he slowly opens them and is in complete shock. To see just a normal cityscape in front of him, with people all over. Just walking around peacefully, living their lives. His heart starts to beat loudly. He's finally made it out. A man walks over, asking why he is in the middle of the road. Boy turns and is happy to see another person. The man wonders if he's got something wrong with his head. Boy realizes it's too early for this. He can't let his guard down now that he's escaped. As father might realize he is missing, so the best thing he can do now is just run and create distance. As he runs through the city, he says he's dreamed of this all of his life. To escape from the basement, and to be truly free. Up until a few moments ago it felt like an impossible task, but somehow it still feels odd why it just opened so suddenly. He stops moving, to wonder why. He thinks maybe it was a system malfunction, but there's no way it would open solely because of that, as father wouldn't make mistakes. Which makes him think that maybe opening the door was his father's intent all along. He shakes his head saying no way, as he was the one who made the rule of never leaving the basement. Boy looks around to see people living their lives like normal people, students, kids playing happily and just smiles all around. He realizes that these could have experiences he would have had, if his father had not lied to him. There is no apocalypse, just peacefulness. Boy says he knew the worries about the end were all just pointless. While everyone is enjoying themselves, but all of their laughter began to be drowned out by the sound of wings flapping, and only one thing echoed throughout Boy's head. That was that the end finds them all without warning. Birds fly up in the sky, and everyone looks up at something in pure disbelief. A balloon blocks Boy's sight, but as it passes we see there is something in the sky above. That begins to blot out the sun. Everyone begins to wonder what is going on. From the mysterious planet thing, it begins to form a whirlwind. A closer look at the planet shows there are multiple of them forming all at the same time, going straight towards Earth, almost like tentacles. As it gets closer they begin to panic. They ask each other what it is, suggesting maybe it's the moon. Boy asks if everyone is dumb, or if they just cannot see the bright light emanating from it. As it is a monster's eyes, glaring at them all. But it's not just one, as those tentacles that formed are thousands of monsters all charging together, forming into them. As it gets closer and closer, Boy recalls his father saying to never leave. But that there is an exception to that rule, which is when the basement's location is exposed to the enemy. For some reason the monsters head straight into the basement before even going to other parts of the earth. Which means that Rule 1 no longer applies. The monsters charge through the basement, heading to the very end. With them being crammed inside like sardines, the others begin to spread out among the surface. The winners of the Darwin Award all sit and stare at the sight, until one of them is picked up by a monster and pulled towards it with its tentacles. The man screams, but doesn't even try to escape the monster's clutches. And is greeted with the monster's mouth ready to eat. At this point nobody is running, and just watch as the man gets munched on like a McRib. With only his head being thrown across the ground, landing in front of the crowd. They wait for it to roll over before the fear and panic set in. They start to scream and everyone begins to run asking what the hell is going on. Some of them start to fall down, and we see a socially unaware kid listening to music. While everyone else runs past him. We see something flying in from above. And it turns out it's a rock being thrown by this giant guy. He starts yeeting them out towards the civilians. As if it isn't bad enough they need to watch out for giant rocks, another monster flies out, covered in spikes. It effortlessly cuts the people around it in half. Other types of monsters appear, just effortlessly snubbing out the life of these humans. A man looks over and screams, and then we see Boy watching this. People start to call for the police. Boy hears a horrible sound, and says that his father once told him when the apocalypse comes, the world will be filled with blood and screams, with only ashes being left behind. What was once a peaceful street, now turned into a scene of horror. Boy sees what can only be described as an absolute unit. Stomping on skyscrapers. As if the monster parade didn't cement the fact their ordinary lives are over. This behemoth stomping out buildings, and destroying the terrain made them understand the world is doomed. Just look at how much of the city this unit stomped out, with even more monsters descending down into the ruins of the city. Boy says that his father was right this entire time. He starts to wonder if his father wasn't lying to him after all, and maybe his mother is dead. He begins to freeze up as everyone behind him gets engulfed into the wave of monsters. While Boy is standing there, a hand grabs him and begins carrying him away. As it's none other than Father. He asks how he found him, but Father says to keep running, and not to stop. The monsters get closer and closer. The man behind Boy begins to get turned into a chew toy. Boy starts to pant, as he and his father round a corner only to see even more monsters. Father leaps over a railing, saying to follow him closely. Boy does so, and they start to run against the crowd. Towards a bridge off in the distance, monsters of all shapes and sizes begin to eat the civilians around them, and some seem to just kill for seemingly no reason. Boy keeps running, but some more Darwin Award winners stand by and stare at the monsters. They consume everything behind Boy and Father. And as they get further up the bridge, Boy turns to see there aren't any people left behind them, as they have all been caught up in the monster wave. He tells his father they'll be catching up. Father tells him to keep running, and it's the only way to leave the city. The bridge is over a giant canyon, probably left from the unit. Below them the monster wave sweeps up everything, but turns and starts heading up the bridge now. He tells Father about this, but then gets stopped in his tracks. As a monster has latched onto his foot, it starts to squeeze, and begins to damage his foot. He grunts out of pain, but says if he doesn't get it off now, he will die. But Father pulls up with a car door, and uses it to cut the monster's arm off, causing it to scream, and fall off the bridge. Boy starts to grasp his ankle, and Father gets close to him, seeing that his foot is decently injured. The bridge begins to shake, as the wave is still charging straight toward them. Boy starts to stand up, saying he needs to run, but the more he does the more that he realizes the gap between them seems to be shrinking. And no matter how much he runs he won't be able to escape. He falls over, and as it gets closer, he looks up to see Father staring at him. He tells him to go, saying he can save himself at least. Father begins to take steps, and Boy says this is what he expected, as his father always ignored him. He thinks it's over, but his father reaches his hand out. Asking why he isn't getting up, Boy is confused. Asking why he isn't just leaving him and running away. Since he cannot make it far even if he runs, Father tells him he can survive, since he has a plan. Boy is surprised, saying there is no way he has a plan. Father looks at him with a trusting face, and Boy closes his mouth, recalling his tears. Then grabs his hand. Father pulls him away, saying to run. As Boy begins to, he turns to ask what the plan was. He feels something in his hand, and Father yells at him that there is no time, he needs to escape the bridge now. Boy says he got it, and begins to run. The closer he gets to the other side, the more violently the bridge begins to rumble. He sees shadows, and turns to spot the bridge's beam supports breaking due to the weight of the monsters. And that the cables also snap, as it falls into the canyon below, sending some of the monsters, and presumably Father, down to the depths below. Boy stands there, and calls out to his father. He wonders what happened to the bridge, or if his father is okay. He recalls his father saying he had a plan, and wonders if this was what he had planned. He asks why he would go to the extent of torturing him for his entire life. To now saving him, his legs shake and he collapses. Saying that he's survived, but now what? What's the point of him surviving? Everything he's dreamed about in the above ground life, that light has been put out. There is no peace here, there is no beauty, and his most important goal of meeting his mother is also nothing but a dream. He begins to cry, saying he wanted to ask why his father went so far to save him. He asks what he is meant to do next, as this is a hell worse than the prison he grew up in. He recalls his father helping him, and giving him a note. He looks at his hand, and slowly opens it to see what is written. He stops crying after what he saw, and he stares at the remains of the bridge. But a monster then starts to crawl out of the cliff. Boy gets scared, and turns to run but feels nothing but pain in his leg. He grabs onto the railing, and realizes the monster is getting closer and closer. Until they both end up falling off of the bridge. Boy rolls along the ground, the monster also decides to play on the floor too. Boy tries to stand up, but he can't since his stamina is at rock bottom. The monster starts to sit up, and he says he cannot run from it. He starts to think that he is going to die like this, but now his light is reignited. He has hope again. He begins to cry while looking at the note, and he wonders why his father is only telling him that his mother is alive now. The monster stands up. Now that he has something to hope for, his body begins to surge with adrenaline. And he stands up saying he wants to live. He won't give up, he will find his mother. But first, how the hell is he meant to handle this monster in front of him? He recalls a lesson from his father and how humans won't be able to survive, since they won't have the power of knowledge to survive independently. The monster runs at him, while father says even if they survive, it's just a matter of time until they die. The monster goes for an attack, and he asks his father how he is meant to deal with it. Since if what he said is all true, it means that he will be unable to do anything, and just accept his death. As the fist gets closer and closer to his face, time begins to stop for Boy, as his father asks if he's forgotten everything he's taught him. All forms of countering begin to flow through Boy's mind, and he sees the fist and avoids the punch, and jumps behind the monster. But due to the momentum from the punch, the monster has to stop himself from sliding off the cliff. Boy is surprised he managed to avoid it. And he sees the monster is ready for round 2. But recalls his father saying that he is built differently. The biggest difference between him and others is that Boy knows exactly what he must do to survive, as that is all he has been taught. Boy stops shaking and calms down, lowering himself down into a fighting stance, ready to fight. The monster charges toward him, and he looks ready. It comes with another punch. Boy slides underneath the punch, stopping himself by the spike he saw earlier. He grabs onto it, and pulls it out of the ground. He charges at the monster, who turns to grab a hold of him, but Boy evades the attack, and with the spike in his hand, he grabs onto it, and turns to stab the monster straight through the head with it. It cuts to a different area, with monsters having completely taken over the city, or well, the rubble that remains of the city. In the underground we see some survivors, and they are saying the cops should do something by now, as it's been 4 days. They say they are lucky to be able to hide here, but that their food supplies are running low. The girl looks at her friend, and he doesn't say anything, as he says if they stay hopeful maybe something will change. A guy tells her that she's making everyone uncomfortable. She says she isn't speaking loudly, and he says that's not what he means, as we see her friend is most likely already dead. He tells her never mind, and walks away, saying he might be losing his mind at this point. A schoolgirl calls out to him, and tells him that she can't find food anywhere. He tells her that they have to find food somehow if they want to stay here. She says there's still one place to check, and she didn't look over there, so she'll check it out again. So not to give up. The man smiles, and thanks her, saying everyone is exhausted from guarding against the monsters, and she is the only one willing to help them all this much. He calls her a great kid, and she shakes her head saying not at all. He says they need to keep hoping and try to get everyone out of here. She is speechless, and walks over to 2 people talking. They turn to look at her, and she asks them if they found any food here. They look at each other, and pull out a sandwich saying they found it earlier. The girl then rips the bag, and the girl tells them to wait, but they munch on it. She asks what they are doing, saying they said they'd share their food. The other girl says that those boring people made that decision, they never said they'd go along with it. She tells them just yesterday they ate the food from the shared portion. The man says he doesn't remember that. The girl grits her teeth, saying she's going to report them. The guy stands up and threatens her, saying to go ahead and try, saying they won't stand by and watch. She says it's pointless, since they can't catch her, as if there's one thing she's good at. It is running away. The guy starts to walk at her, but a scream is heard and they all turn and begin to feel fear. The woman says it came from far, so they'll probably be okay. He says he got scared for nothing, then notices the schoolgirl is cowered on the floor. He sees her shivering, then laughs at her, saying she was so confident a minute ago, yet now she is too afraid to move. She spots food they've left behind, and quickly leaves. She goes back to the guy from earlier, and he asks her if she looked in the area he said. She says yes. He asks how it went. We see the food in her pocket, but her stomach growls and she tells him that she found nothing. He says that he isn't surprised, and what is important is that they are alive. But of course that won't last for long as a monster bursts into the room. The schoolgirl is knocked down, but sits back up and is in fear as she sees the monster behind the man. He crawls and stretches his hand out toward her, begging for help. But she runs away saying she's sorry. The man tells her to wait, and she says that she told him before she isn't a good person, as he gets turned into a chew toy. The couple from earlier start to run as well. They spot the schoolgirl running straight toward a monster. The woman says it'll be fine as they can just use her as bait. She keeps running forward and the girl calls her an idiot. The monster swings down toward her, and she sees this. But in her eyes she hasn't given up. She dives forward, and rolls past the attacks, going into a handstand roll. The others are surprised, as she has even landed all of the acrobatics. He recalls that she said she was good at running away, and how she wasn't bluffing. Then they get eaten. We see her finally making it behind some cover, and is gassed out. She falls to the floor, and hopes the monsters leave her be. Then she looks over to see Boy sitting there too. She screams and pushes him over, thinking it was a corpse. But he mumbles, and she realizes he is alive. But right in front of them is a monster. She wonders if the monster heard her scream. It starts to crawl toward them and she shakes in fear, but sees Boy still laying on the floor. She grabs him by the collar, and drags him away from the monster, hiding the both of them. It starts to leave, and she says thank God. It's gone, and sighs saying she's alive. Then looks down to see that Boy is awake now. She screams again, and he jumps away from her, asking who she is, and what she was doing to him. She is confused, but all he can hear is his father's words about not trusting anyone. She asks what he means, saying she hid him from a monster. But he says that father is probably right, and he shouldn't get close to humans. He asks her how he can believe her, but his stomach growls and he drops to the floor. He says this isn't good as he's hungry. He ate something 5 days ago in the basement, and he's reached his limit. He's been taking breaks to preserve his energy, but now Hess ran into a human. She tells him she has no food, and he asks what she's talking about, since he didn't ask her in the first place. She says that he just looked hungry, and she told him in the first place. The food falls out of her pocket, and she begins to sweat nervously. He asks her what that is, and she starts to think of a cover-up, but he genuinely has no idea what it is. But he gets hungrier while looking at it. Then he asks her if it's food. She quickly says no. He says he must have been wrong then. But she keeps trying to cover it up, and says he's an idiot for not recognizing food. And she can probably get out of here. He then calls her a liar, asking if she thought he'd really believe a human. She is lost. He says that she'd be wrong to think he'd trust her, as all humans lie. She realizes she underestimated how smooth this dude's brain is. Boy says judging by her reaction he can tell that it is food. He needs it, and if she doesn't plan to cooperate he'll take it by force. But she hands him half of it, saying that it's exactly half. She cannot give him any more. He wonders why she is sharing, saying that this just puts her at a disadvantage. She says he needs to pay her back 4 times what she gave him and not to forget it. He says okay, and starts to eat his half. Then he goes to leave and she asks where he is going. He says now that he's eaten, he is moving. She asks where in the hell he'll be going in this situation. She tells him that this is her neighborhood and she knows the place well, so she is sure there's nowhere to go due to monsters. She bumps into him, and asks why he stopped moving. He asks if she really knows the area well. She says yes, and she grew up here. He then asks if she knows where the subway is. After a bit of sneaking around, she wonders how she ended up in this position. If she'd have known she would have shared her bread with him. But she's curious, and asks why he wants to go to the subway. He tells her because it's safe there, it's concentrated in goods for survival, and it's a route for them to travel without the eyes of monsters. And most importantly that the subway makes it hard for the monsters to detect humans. She says he's strange, and she speaks like he knows something. And it's odd he didn't recognize Brett earlier. She says that they are here, but she is confused, saying she's sure it was here at least. He asks her if she is trying to deceive him. She says that this obviously isn't the subway, but she's trying to find the entrance. She tells him to wait here and she'll find it, but gets jump scared by an old man telling her to be quiet. He says he came here because he heard something, but didn't expect it to be humans. Boy asks him who he is, and he says that's rude, and they can have their introductions later. He tells them to follow him, but the girl asks where they are going. He says they were looking for it right, and he guides them through rubble and down the escalator. To reveal that it's the subway they were looking for. The girl says there's a lot of people, and it's surprising to see so many people here. The old man says he can't forget about that moment. To think monsters would appear so randomly, he knew there'd be nowhere to run, but he found this place while escaping. It was sheer luck, but he's been scavenging on the surface looking for medicine, which is why he heard them talking. Boy looks around saying he planned on making a subway in the base, but there's so many people here. He can see all types, those drowned in despair. Those who seem to show their evil sides, and there's even someone he can't get a read on here. The more humans there are, the more risk factors he will need to manage. But among them all there is not one who could truly put him in any sense of danger. He can instinctively tell who is dangerous, just like with the monsters on the surface, and also like his dad, he can sense an aura, so to speak. But nobody here gives off a dangerous feeling, so maybe it'll be safe to stay here. Since none of them can actually harm him, and even if they become enemies. But his thought is cut off by the old man saying it's time for introductions. His name is Huang Baum, and he is a doctor. Baum says again he was looking for medicine and that's how he met them, and he wasn't able to get shit. Then asks for their introductions. Boy doesn't reply, so the girl says her name is Haru. Baum says that's a good name, and judging by her clothes, she must go to virtual middle school. She says that's right, asking if he knows it. He says of course, as his hospital was right across the school near the mall. She says she doesn't remember a hospital being there. Baum looks at Boy and sees his clothes are all raggedy, and says he's clearly been through a lot, then asks for his name. Boy says that he doesn't know what his name is. Baum is surprised, and Boy explains he's never had one. Baum thinks it's a joke, saying he can tell him next time and laughs. A man quickly enters saying things have gotten worse. We see an injured man leaning against a wall, and he's glad to see Baum. Baum says he can see that it's bad, and while they stopped the bleeding last time it's progressing faster than expected. He says they need to do surgery now, or else he'll be in danger due to the infection. He shows he has the surgical tools, saying they must do it now. He goes to disinfect the wound, and Boy says he's read about doctors in books. A job that treats humans for a price, but now in the apocalypse they can't exchange money, so he asks Baum what he is receiving as his price to treat them all. Baum looks surprised, and says that he doesn't need something like that. They are all surprised by his answer. He says it's a doctor's job to treat those who are hurt, and not to worry, as he's rarely failed a surgery. The man tears up saying he's so thankful, and he hugs him. Boy is confused, asking why he is helping him without anything in return. He wonders if humans are stupid, or if they do this kind of stuff. Baum tells him to be careful not to open his wounds. The man thanks him, then sees that on his jacket it says he is a veterinarian. Baum tells the man it's time to get started, and it might hurt, but he can't help it. The man starts to panic, saying to wait a minute and he doesn't want this. Baum says he has to do it, or else he will die. The man asks how a veterinarian can perform surgery on humans. Baum says of course he can, since humans are technically animals. The man tells him that he doesn't want this anymore. Baum says he needs to calm down before his condition gets worse. He says he needs anesthetics, and a girl tells him they don't have anything like that. Baum leans over, picks up a brick and tells the man it's time for the night-night juice. Boy says he was wrong, humans are definitely dangerous.